Hi there, I'm Nia Malika Henderson, and this is On Background. America's fast food industry spends billions of dollars each year on advertising. Its target audience, very often kids and teens. And while many fast food companies are offering healthier alternatives to fatty foods, there are far fewer ads for healthy menu items. Join us for a conversation about fast food, the advertising industry, and your kids' health. It's time to go on background. $1.8 billion. That's how much money the fast food industry spends each year marketing toward young people. But there is also some good news. A recent study by Yale's Rudd Center for Food Policy and Obesity finds children today are seeing 10% fewer TV ads for fast food. And childhood obesity rates are slightly down in 19 states across the country. Researchers, parents, and advocacy groups are arguing that the fast food industry still needs to do much more. Joining me on Skype is Maureen Morrison, a reporter with Advertising Age. Maureen, thank you so much for joining me today. Give me a sense, the lay of the land of where we are now in terms of fast food marketing towards children. It seems like there has been some progress, a decrease in some of these ads, but still people say much more needs to be done. What's your sense?
Yeah, well, there has been a bit of a decrease, like you mentioned, but that's a certain age group, kids, I think about 6 to 11, and that decline is mostly because McDonald's and Burger King are advertising less, but the industry overall is still advertising more, and that decrease was just on TV. And, some of these companies are advertising online more, creating apps more for kids, so it's not necessarily that there's less advertising, there's just less TV advertising, mainly because of two of the biggest players.
And if we think about what the pressure points are for these big companies, McDonald's, Burger King, other fast food restaurants, what are the pressure points to get them to curb their advertising? Is it they want to make a goodwill gesture because that's good for sort of their reputation? Is there any sort of governmental pressure that is being brought to bear or could be brought to bear?
Well, I think they recognize that they have to offer healthier options at this point in time for kids, and a lot of them are starting to do that, but the Yale study claims that most of the fast food kids combos still aren't quite up to the nutritional standards that they should be. But the companies are making some progress. There is industry self-regulation in terms of advertising to kids and what they should be advertising. So there are some nutritional standards, but a lot of consumer advocacy groups or watchdog groups don't think it's enough.
And we reached out to the National Restaurant Association. Their Director of Nutrition, Joy Dubost, she said it is important to recognize that the restaurant industry remains committed to providing an array of nutritious offerings for children. In 2011, as a testament to the industry's commitment to offering healthful options, the National Restaurant Association launched the Kids Live Well program that provides and promotes meals that meet strict nutrition criteria based on the USDA 2010 dietary guidelines and other scientifically established nutrition recommendations. I guess they are also advocating that these restaurants have the nutritional information as well. And so, what's your sense in terms of governmental pressure or sort of governmental high-profile face? It certainly seems like Michelle Obama has entered this space in calling on these companies to be better in terms of their marketing to kids. Is there a Michelle Obama effect?
I think probably partially, yeah. She's been a pretty big advocate in terms of nutrition, and I don't necessarily think she has any direct say over what's happened, but
Right.
the companies are definitely having to respond to this.
And is there also, I was at the White House 2 weeks ago, and it seems like one of the things they want to do is, at least the White House and some of these companies in Sesame Street, they want to market healthy foods. The idea being if you put an Elmo sticker on an apple, according to a Cornell study, that kids are much more likely to eat that apple if Elmo is like, me love apples. I guess that would be Cookie Monster, but go ahead.
Yeah, I could see how that would be very effective. I mean, the fact is that advertising works on kids, and they want to get stuff that's associated with characters that they like.
Right, and so it does seem like the advertising company, fewer TV ads, but they've been very strategic about really reaching kids where they live, which is on Facebook and Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see that, and there's also I mentioned it before, but these companies coming out with apps more, online games, that sort of thing, stuff that you can't necessarily measure in terms of marketing dollars, just because that's not in place yet. But those companies do recognize that more and more kids, even really young ones, are online or using iPads more, and
right.
So they're kind of going to those places.
And the stats here that we have, fast food ads on TV, children see 13 per day, teens 16 per day. That's about 4,700 a year. How powerful a tool is advertising? Are we sort of overestimating the power of advertising and ceding some of the responsibility that parents have?
Well, I mean, I think obviously parents have to make their own choices, but I do think, especially in younger kids, based on the studies that I've seen, if there's cartoon characters or, like I said, characters that they like that are associated with these products, I mean, there's a better chance of them wanting to get these products.
And is there, in talking about this to my producers, we thought about the tobacco industry, and what you saw with the tobacco industry was an increasing awareness of the dangers of smoking, but also a real pushback from the government in terms of advertising to kids and labeling on their products. Is this a parallel that the fast food industry should be concerned about, or is it completely different?
They hate this parallel. They do not like this comparison. But I do think there's concern in the sense that, there are so many things that we all know about health now, and these companies are trying to make strides, but most people, or not most people, but like consumer advocacy groups are still having trouble with it. However, the industry, for the most part now, is self-regulating. I mean, there are Federal Trade Commission rules about advertising and deceptiveness and that sort of thing. But the tobacco industry became so heavily regulated by
right.
the government that I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think there would have to be a lot of laws made for that to happen. But I could see it becoming more and more regulated as time goes by.
And you saw, of course, in New York, a different issue, but you can imagine that the same argument could be made around the soda ban. People should be able to drink as much Coca-Cola or Pepsi or High C or Hawaiian Punch as they want. And you saw real backlash against that. Yeah,
and consumer advocacy groups and watchdog groups, I mean, their response to this would be that the industry constantly blaming personal and parental responsibility is not necessarily helpful. No one's arguing that people shouldn't be responsible for what they put in their bodies. But, I mean, a lot of the consumer watchdog groups just want them to market less. I mean,
right.
That's just...
because you've heard all of this recent talk about the way they manufacture this food. It makes it addictive in some ways. Like if you eat Fruit Loops, you want to eat more Fruit Loops because, if you eat a hamburger, there's the way they sort of process it, there's a sort of an addictive quality to it. Mm-hmm. Has that science sort of changed the arguments being made around this?
I think in some ways, yeah. But if you talk to the companies about the food development process, I mean, they're doing focus groups and testing with consumers all the time. And so their answers always are, well, we put the stuff in the market that people respond to the most.
Right,
so.
and kids respond to. Kids, well, yeah, no, I won't understand that. Maureen Morris, a reporter for Ad Age, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And that's our show for today. Join us tomorrow where we'll be talking about cord cutting. It's a growing trend where consumers, sort of like me, are opting out of traditional cable TV packages and instead watching programs on the internet. What does this mean for the future of cable, and how can you cut the cord? Tweet us your comments using @background and that hashtag postback. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.